Welcome. I'm Jenny Williams. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm one of the co-chairs of Justice and Jubilee. You've found us, and we are glad that you're here. Justice and Jubilee is something that I have felt a call to start and develop for almost 3 years. It started as a nugget and kind of just kept evolving and developing and was affected by the pandemic, the shape of what this would be. And I'm so glad to be with you on this inaugural day of something that I hope will change the landscape of injustice in West Virginia. Justice and Jubilee is an emerging movement for collective liberation in West Virginia and beyond. We're rooted in progressive Christianity, which means that many of us have some relationship to a Christian framework or belief system or background that believes that God has a preferential option for people who are poor and vulnerable, and that woven into the DNA of God's people is a call to work for liberation and dismantle oppression. We welcome you to this work and to who we are. We think there are a lot of you who suspect that there's something wrong with the church, whether you're inside it or outside it. And so we welcome people who are deconstructing your faith and don't really know what's up or down in your spiritual existence anymore. We welcome people, laity or clergy, who know that there's more to what we call the good news or the gospel than colonial attempts to get individual people spiritually straightened out. And you yearn to hear more of what's there. We welcome people who don't identify as Christians, but you just want to check us out and see what we're up to. We can all work together for good, even if we have different motivations for pursuing liberation. One thing we can guarantee you is that you won't be coerced in Justice and Jubilee. You will not be required to do anything or believe anything or react any particular way. Many of our leaders come from a Christian framework, but that doesn't mean that you have to. Everything through Justice and Jubilee is on offer because we follow a God who offers and invites, not forces. So here's what we offer. Justice and Jubilee offers a weekly message and music. It will air at 5 p.m. on Sundays on Facebook, and it will also be available asynchronously on Facebook afterwards and on YouTube. By the way, I'm a fan of alliteration, so Justice and Jubilee, message and music, you'll probably have to tolerate this a lot. We are also going to offer times of virtual gathering. So at first, that's going to be on a Zoom immediately following our message and music at 5 on Sundays, sort of a short virtual hangout for whoever wants to stop by and say hi and meet like-minded folks. And what that continues to look like into the future will evolve according to your feedback and your needs, so let us know. We will offer virtual small groups for those who want to connect more deeply with people who probably share a lot of your same concerns and views. And we'll offer classes and workshops. We'll cover topics of interest and current issues and training in community organizing. We're partnering with our friends over at Accidental Tomatoes on their blog and their podcast, which is generally aimed at folks who are deconstructing Christianity. The topics are really interesting, and we hope you'll check those out. You can go to Accidental Tomatoes online and find that. And Justice and Jubilee will offer a platform for action on local community concerns wherever you live, and in West Virginia at the state level. God's people don't sit still. And in the work of liberation, God's people partner with friends who don't identify as God's people. Please feel free to engage as much or as little in anything that Justice and Jubilee offers. And please know that if you're part of a local church, that's awesome. We're offering resources to augment your growth and discipleship, not to take you from your faith community. You can be part of your people and probably find things that are helpful here too. If you want to find out about any more of this or hear more details, you can message us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can go to our currently very simple website, wvfaith.org, and you can contact us through any of those platforms and ask to be put on our email list. In the next many weeks, the Justice and Jubilee co-chairs and I, as well as maybe a friend or two, will be talking in the weekly messages about what is justice and what is Jubilee. As we start this thing together, we'll start by exploring those foundational concepts. The two co-chairs are my dear friends, Reverend Brad Davis and Ms. Royce Lydon, and I can't wait for you to meet them if you don't already know them. And each week we'll have some phenomenal artists offering different kinds of music. So we hope you'll find their contributions a meaningful part of what we offer. As we kick off the weekly message and music today, I really wanted to start with a biblical exploration of the concept of justice. It's a word that gets thrown around and is often left to the hearer to assign meaning to it. So I thought that would be a good place for us to start. But I can't start that way because my present work has occupied most of my mental space. For the last 6 weeks, I've been engaged in a matter of concern in my community, and my focus and my heart are there. On the second day of this school year, the administration of Morgantown High School, which is located in the county where I live, directed teachers to remove pride flags from their classrooms. There'd just been a few classrooms in which those flags were hanging, and there was a complaint, and the administration directed the teachers to take those down. This, of course, came as a huge shock to queer students and allies in the school, and all of a sudden made them wonder about their safety, right? About their ability to be there and exist in that space and move through it freely. For those who aren't from West Virginia, one of the reasons that this is really difficult is because Morgantown is one of the most progressive cities in our state. So this was horrifying to us because if it could happen here, what would that then mean for the rest of the state? So the students organized. They've been doing a fantastic job. They spoke at a Board of Ed meeting middle of September. And at that meeting, there were 13 speakers, some students, some parents, some queer faculty, professors at the university, community members, faith leader. And we didn't coordinate what we were going to say in our remarks. We each had about 5 minutes. And interestingly, every single person talked about the concept of safety and how that pride flag creates a safe space for students. And also interestingly is all 13 of those speeches were different. People didn't duplicate each other. We all had different ways of coming at talking about the importance of the presence of those pride flags in a high school classroom. After hearing all of the speakers, the board members in their structure don't respond to the speakers in the moment, but at the end of the meeting, some of the board members asked that this item be put on the agenda for the following board meeting for discussion. And so that would be 2 weeks later. In those 2 weeks, the students coordinated a rally on the Board of Ed property that would happen for an hour prior to that next meeting. There were maybe about 100 people there, lots of news outlets. It was a wonderful time for the students to feel supported and for the community to show their support. At the board meeting, they started talking about this issue of pride flags under a section of their policy that talks about political activity. So you probably can see where that's going. The actual technical part of their policy is talking about during times of election cycles to keep campaigning for candidates out of the classroom and out of extracurricular activities on the school properties, to prevent posters and literature is the language that's used in the policy for political activities, points of view, or issues. And so the board was looking at the pride flag hanging under that particular part of the policy, that the pride flag was political. We can talk a lot about what is and isn't political, but certainly the intent of that policy was deeming political as pertaining to candidates or matters that were up for vote. At that second meeting, there were 37 speakers. Each speaker got 90 seconds to speak. And of those, 30 were in support of the pride flags being restored to the classroom, and 7 opposed them. And of course, some of those speakers dragged out the Bible verses you think might be brought out in that situation. The board discussed the matter and decided to take no action at that time. So the students had already planned a walkout for the next day at Morgantown High. They did an incredible job. It was so impressive. I don't know how to count. Preacher numbers are awful, but I'm going to venture to say something like maybe 200 students were gathered, and student after student spoke. And as you might suspect, the first students who spoke were some of the planners. These were students who were comfortable holding a bullhorn and being able to speak in rhetoric that was easily heard by the crowd, audibly heard, shorter phrases, not long paragraphs, very ably speaking into that setting. And as those folks had spoken, then sort of regular everyday students who weren't typically part of these kinds of things, you could tell, came up and started speaking. And people shared their journeys and their pain and their pride and their desire for their school and their community to do better. It was so inspiring. This week, some of us returned to the third Board of Ed meeting to give voice to our continued concerns and to not let the problem fade away, even though they'd voted not to, even though they hadn't voted to do anything at the second meeting. Previously, when I'd spoken in those meetings, I'd focused my remarks on different aspects of the matter. One of them, I spoke about the fact that this was happening in 2022, which is ridiculous. And in another, I spoke about the ludicrous application of this piece of policy to the hanging of pride flags. But this time, this past week, on National Coming Out Day, I spoke to the board members about allyship. And I pointed out where the language, sentiments, and approaches of some of the board members in previous meetings didn't match their expressed desire to make the schools safe places for all students. I've been so impressed by everyone who has spoken, the students, the parents, people who aren't usually in public speaking situations. Everyone's been so collected and composed and had really meaningful things to say. And these are the kinds of things that we're called to do as God's people, to follow the lead of people in communities who have been historically excluded from power in our society and in our church, and stand in solidarity together and speak and act. God's people have sat in silence for too long, at least where I live. Religious voices of hate and exclusion ring loud in the public square. And where are the voices that speak for love and for inclusion? Marianne Williamson has said, hate has talked loudly for so long. Greed has talked loudly for so long. Liars have talked loudly for so long. Love has got to stop whispering. I know many of you are feeling this call and wanting to develop your work of advocacy, but don't know how. Or you desperately want to find the courage to take the risks inherent in working for justice and liberation, especially when that work is public. Justice and Jubilee is committed to helping you develop these things by providing spiritual resources, practical training, and opportunities to act. One of the defining statements for what we do comes from Dr. Cornel West. And when I'm speaking and I mention a queer or a Black, Indigenous, or person of color, I'm going to pause and I'm going to say their name again so that you can make a mental note of it or even write that note down and take time afterwards to look them up. So this is from Dr. Cornel West. Justice is what love looks like in public. Let's be part of that work together. Amen. Each week, as I said, we'll have a piece of music. We have that today. Largely, our musicians will be BIPOC folks or LGBTQ plus folks. We hope to amplify their work. And as you hear this piece of music, I just invite you to sit with anything that's come into your mind during this time, to take some time to breathe deeply, to listen, and to reflect. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle Padilla, and please enjoy my performance of Kenji Bunches Until Next Time.